All right, guys, welcome back into the very latest episode of the Starting 11 podcast. My name is Emilio Pena, and I'll be your host like always. I got Grant Rowland back with us today. It's been quite a while, I feel like, since we had a conversation, our last episode. You were taking your vacation, and I got Evan in, talked some Champions League, and then we kind of had like a little bit of a hiatus there. But no shortage of exciting football, especially with Sunday afternoon special that we had with the Chelsea and Manchester City game. Really exciting 4-4 matchup. Every time you look away, it seems like someone's just going to ultimately get the winning goal. But then what I meant to say was the second you look away, someone either gets that scoring goal or that equalizer because the game led into the NFL game. So I kind of just put that one to the back burner. And then, Rodri scores the equal or fourth goal to put City up. And then after that, Cole Palmer steps up and ice cold with that penalty kick. So yeah, it was an exciting matchup. Puts Chelsea at 10th and City still at first place in the league. This is two in a row for Chelsea and two in a row where they scored 4 goals.
Yeah, I knew obviously when Poch came in, it like takes a minute for coaches to, implement their system and stuff. But Chelsea, beginning of the year, definitely looked like a lost cause. And like I was wondering if or how long it was going to take, if like at all, like if Poch could get control of this team and get it together. But with an international break coming up, pretty unfortunate timing once you get into this kind of form because putting four past City in a single game is like quite the feat considering like how good they are, like how much possession they have, just like style of play. And then they beat Tottenham, right?
Mm-hmm. That's when
Before
Tottenham went
that.
down to 9 men.
Yeah, and I that's a crazy game. So like I don't know. People both ways, but a win's a win. You're just gathering momentum to the best teams in the Premier League right now, so can't really take that away from them. And I'm pretty sure I want to say like this run of Premier League games for them is really tough. They have some really good teams like back to back to back to back. So it's nice for them to pick up form, but again, like international break, you kind of hope you come back and still have that same form. Be interesting to see how they bounce back. Another team that we just mentioned, Tottenham Hotspur, kind of going through the opposite, the rough patch. Kind of a good time for an international break. Hopefully they can reset. And they're another one it'll be interesting to see because like Chelsea, they can get down on themselves and then go through a really bad rough patch. At least Tottenham has the past, I don't even know how many years. And that seemed to change with Big Ange at the helm. So yeah, I think it'll be really interesting. And Chelsea, are they back? Seems like they're making steps. They're having some steps to, I don't know, start moving up the table and potentially getting some European competition next year.
Yeah, Nicholas Jackson quietly has 4 goals in the last 2 games, which is kind of crazy to think about when you saw the way he was performing earlier in the season, just some of the misses he
Mm-hmm.
had. So it's kind of nice to see him get back into it. I wonder how that'll work once Christopher Nkunku is back, but they certainly got a number 9 filling in right now. His goal in the City game was pretty interesting because there was a certain angle I saw online where it was like from behind the goal before they tapped it in. It was Gallagher who had that crazy shot from outside of the
Mm-hmm.
box that was blocked. Before that happens, like there's this clip where it shows Ruben Diaz where he tries to like slide tackle and almost like block it, but he's like a good like 2 feet off. He was kind of late too, so it just completely opened up Jackson's ability to tap in that goal to equalize 3-3 at that time. When your top defender is not playing well like that, that'll do it. And then the second goal too, the Raheem Sterling goal, Vardiol kind of just like slipped up on the cross from, I'm blanking who that was. I think it might have been I don't know, two mental errors from two. You're supposed to be top defenders allowing in goals. That's how you drop points.
Yeah, absolutely. And like this isn't like it's a like beat up City team. I know we're in the part of the year like every team is injured or whatever, but yeah, like it was a solid City team. It was like a rotated team. It wasn't like Rodri being out or whatever. I mean, outside De Bruyne, like this is a like full and a City team that like honestly is like kind of rolling right now. Jeremy Doku playing extremely well, kind of took over that spot from Grealish, and instead of this like kind of playing with wing back, kind of killing game City where they score a couple goals, like ice out the game, they kind of are back to at least I think are like slowly coming back to that like can put six on you on any given day. So that's a really big result for Chelsea and definitely something to build on.
Now I kind of mentioned it too, how the top of the table has gotten pretty tight. First place is City, 28 points. Second place, Liverpool, 27. Tied with them, third, based off a goal differential, is Arsenal, 27 points. Then Spurs have dropped to fourth, and Aston Villa, fifth. They are sitting at 25 points. So they're only 3 points off first. So it's obviously very, very tight right now. What's really
Mhm.
interesting too is you are alluding to how we're about to enter this international break. The first game back, not even just like the main matchup, but the first game, like the first opening game that Saturday morning is Liverpool and Manchester City. So it's like an interesting game. Like the two top teams right now playing. I'm getting the information as we speak. It appears that it will be in Manchester, so surely they'll be the
Okay.
favorites. And surely, people will be expecting them to take home the 3 points. But Liverpool, they just came off a good win against Brentford, kind of course correction because the week before they had that really awful draw to Luton. So, this seems like a main opportunity for Liverpool to potentially take first place of the league.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, anyone, when you said I didn't know the first fixture back from international break, but I would have put money, I would put everything, my car, like everything I own on Liverpool playing in that game because it feels like they always get the short draw, the first game back, like, don't get those extra days of rest and recovery. But and of course it's in Manchester. It's not even a home game. But yeah, I mean, I'm excited. Like even like you said, Aston Villa is really close. Like I like the teams that you don't really expect to be up there to kind of be competing. Like you don't really expect Aston Villa to like win the league or even like finish top four, but just like challenging at this part of the season. But yeah, at this point, it's just who can maintain form in the Premier League this year. I want to say we are about halfway through, so everyone's played pretty much everyone at this point. So like you kind of know what to expect, and obviously like things like injuries play a factor or whatever. And we have a winter window coming up. Like could like their one team have a signing that like just barely puts them over the top. Like maybe like City go in and have a huge signing, but he doesn't fit in right away. And Liverpool have a guy that just slots in perfectly. And I don't know, like that sets them just like barely over the edge. Like, but yeah, it's gonna be fun, gonna be interesting, and I'm excited that like the title race is like this close, and hopefully it maintains being this close. And I mean, again, and last point, like teams are all over. Like City are playing in a bunch of competitions. Same with Arsenal. Like obviously you want to win the Prem, but Arsenal kind of can shoot for Champions League. You have like Liverpool and Spurs who are like focused on winning the league. Like it'll be interesting to see just like how all these factors kind of play in towards the end of the year.
Sure thing. And one of those factors you were just talking about was the injuries. Transitioning to like the next game, I kind of wanted to ask you some questions about was the Spurs
Mm-hmm.
game. It's really unfortunate, and unfortunately, it's a little on brand for the old Spurs and the new Spurs have a chance to kind of shed this label, I guess, where they. I mean, you kind of alluded to it, where they can kind of fall into these deep slumps, and
Mm-hmm.
they like they say when it rains, it pours. They had that 4-1 loss to Chelsea on Monday, and then yesterday or on I think it was Saturday they were playing
Yeah.
Wolves, and after going up 1-0, 3 minutes in, they're kind of just playing damage control. It seems like the whole game, just getting out of there with a 1-0 win. Right when it hits the 90th minute, Wolves score. So then I think 96 minutes in, they score again to obviously
Mm-hmm.
take the 3 points. What does Spurs need to do to right the ship? Because right now they're going to be without James Madison and Mickey Van de Ven for the rest of this calendar year, 2023. So it seems like Postacoglu is going to have to get creative with some of his lineups.
Yeah, I mean, obviously injuries happen, and when you bought James Madison, like you're kind of expecting like he's not the most fit, like he's had injury issues before. Not really sure on Van de Ven, but yeah, I think international break couldn't have come at a better time for them. We'll really get to see what kind of manager Ange Postecoglou is. Like you said, like the lineups, how they play, how they handle like this adversity. Because I can tell you with pretty confidence that last year's Spurs, if like this would have happened, like it would have been an absolute mess. They would have crumbled. But I mean, you've gotten this far in the season, like you have competed with every teams, like every team you've played against. You have had like your bad results or whatever, but that happens to everyone. But yeah, it's really time to see this mentality from Spurs if they have it in them to bounce back and again like kind of get through this adversity and get the results without some of these key players for them because every team has to do it. So we'll see what Spurs are made of, and it'll be exciting, kind of nerve wracking. I'm assuming for Spurs fans, kind of scared, see what happens. But Big Ange, anything like we've learned from kind of how they've played, like it seems like he's the guy to kind of navigate Spurs through these tough waters.
Speaking of tough waters and having to be navigated through, one of the other teams that's kind of had a weird season so far is Manchester United. And, it seems like more often than not, while we're talking about them on this podcast, it's in a negative manner.
Mm-hmm.
But I was just looking at the Premier League table, and they're the only team in the whole entire league who has a zero in one of the three result columns. They're 7-0-5. So they've either won or lost every single game, which is really strange. Obviously, when you weigh everything out, like a draw is worth more than a loss. But like
Hmm.
if you like if you transfer some of those draws into wins, but also a few of them into losses, then like you're ultimately getting more points from the boost in two. Surprisingly, they're sitting at sixth place ahead of teams like Newcastle and ahead of teams like Brighton, who, they're kind of the media darling teams in the sense that they're not traditionally the powerhouses, but they've been
Hmm.
performing close to the level of the powerhouses. So quietly, Manchester United is doing okay despite all the noise about should they fire Eric Ten Hag? Should they do this? Should they do that? And it's kind of interesting given their form in the Champions League as well, sitting in fourth place. I wonder what is to come for them this year because it almost seems like ground bot or rock bottom right now.
That's actually really interesting that they have no draws like 13 games into the season. But I think it goes back to last year with just like that's just a sign of like inconsistency like at like the highest level. They either like really get it right and they can pull out these wins or they get it really wrong and they lose the match. Yeah, it they are super inconsistent. It is also kind of crazy that they are in what you said sixth right
Hmm.
now. Like if you would have told me like to guess like off the top of my head, I would have not said six, just with how competitive the Premier League is, and especially how it has been this season. They're still inconsistent, but like I guess it's like weirdly getting a little better, but also not because last year they had like their inconsistencies were just like polar opposites. Like I don't know, they go a month or two that looking like they're the best team in the world, and then they absolutely plummet. And it's like, is this team going to be relegated? Like, um, at least the start of the season. I think last year they started like I don't know, three straight losses or something.
Yeah, I think
Anyway,
that's right.
but yeah, just polar opposites. And I think one thing that they're really missing a lot is Marcus Rashford. They have not been able to get him going. I don't know what it is, if it's Ten Hag's system, players around him, if it's Marcus, but I watched the game. I forget when they played. Was it against Sheffield? I forget who it was, but Anthony had a cut in and was like right on top of the box, kind of pulled the defenders in. There was like two or three of them, lays it out wide to Marcus Rashford. Maybe it was Luton, but instead of just taking that first time inside the box, like he normally would on his right foot, he like took a touch and like gave the keeper time to come out. And to me, that's just like not just a sign of him just not having the confidence to finish at the moment. So I think a lot of those, I'm gonna be honest, losses would be wins and they'd be higher on the table if they could get Marcus going. But for how, I guess, bad they kind of seem they are, they're really not as bad. And I know Manchester United came out today and said there's no thoughts of firing Ten Hag. They're gonna keep him. They're gonna continue to build with them, which I think is the right move. Like if you just get in the loop of just constantly hiring and firing managers, like you never actually build anything. So it'll be interesting to see just like how they get through this mid-season and start into the second half of the season. So
Certainly, I agree because it seemed like for a stretch after, well, really since Sir Alex Ferguson left, they've kind of just given a manager
mhm.
like 2.5, 3 years, and then if they're not winning the league, which they haven't, then they get replaced, and it's almost like a cycle. But yeah, their lows are definitely very low, and the highs are pretty high. It seems like this year. Excuse me. Now speaking of kind of like highs and lows, Grant, I kind of wanted to just end off the podcast getting your opinion on Barcelona because it's been a little all over the place lately. I feel like it's just injury, 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 conceding early or, giving up late. And then there's like the loss to Shakhtar. I mean, you guys are kind of set as far as the group stage, but I just kind of wanted to get a check in, the state of Barcelona from one of the biggest fans.
Yeah, I mean it's tough. Everything that's going on with the club like has to be stressful for everyone involved, like the players. You never know if you're gonna be in Frankie's situation last year, where it's like the club desperately need to sell someone to. So you never know like who's gonna be there. You got all these like loan players that they brought in for cheap, potentially trying to keep them like long term. You never know what's happening, but despite all that, like it's still like one of the biggest clubs in the world. The talent there is like inexcusable. Like we should be challenging for everything. Last year we won the league with what I think is a significantly less talented team with a healthy Real Madrid. And again, you can't forget like Real Madrid have had massive injuries too. So there's not really any excuses there. It's But like you said, injuries, like we got to have players fit. I know like most of the time it's just like you can't help it, but we have been like one of the worst injured teams like pretty consistently for I don't know how long. So I don't know if that's something we're doing. Overtraining players just like aren't really sticking to like a tight diet, like Usman Dembele did his first couple years. But yeah, there is no excuses. Just with again the pure talent that I mean, we see guys like Fermin Lopez come into the team. Like we know the big youngsters like Yamal and Ansu Fati when he came in and what they can do, but we're just bringing so many youngsters in and they're having an impact. So we have like the youth. We're getting like solid guys like Felix, the Zhao brothers, not the actual brothers, but those Zhao, but Cancelo in, and he's made a tremendous impact on the team. Same with Felix, and so there's really no excuses with that point. But yeah, we just need to be more consistent. It seems like sometimes we just like we don't have that like killer instinct. I think Gavi, I understand like playing against him, you hate him. Having him on your team, you love him, but like that kind of mentality, like I think Xavi came out a couple of weeks ago and was like, he is like the soul of the team. And like you always see him playing, like giving 100, 110%. And sometimes it feels like we just go into coasting mode and we just can't do that. And I mean, it kind of shows with just like how consistent we've been. And I mean, going up against Real Madrid at home and then ending up losing that game. Like, obviously, Jude Bellingham having an insane start of the year, but that's just like not acceptable because we have what I believe players like just as good, if not better, than Jude Bellingham. So yeah, inexcusable. Just need to be more consistent. If we just need that fire, that killer instinct. But
I mean, despite all that, you're still only 4 points off at the top of the table from, the heavyweight, the, ultra team that is Girona sitting 34 points. We're gonna have to take a deep dive on that whole situation sometime soon, probably, within the next couple of weeks. Is they're looking at 11, 1-1. I mean,
yeah,
that's really impressive.
yeah, they've been a team that like when you watched them play, like when I'd watch them play Barcelona, they're another Catalan team, but like you could just see the talent and like what they are like building there, and they were good, but just like I don't know, would be kind of not in like a mean way, just like the lesser team, like they're more likely to make that one vital mistake that leads to a goal. And they've always been a solid team since they've come up in La Liga, and it's pretty cool to see teams like that. Like Betis for a couple years was one that was always scary to play. Sociedad kind of coming back. They've been a surprise, and honestly, I hope they keep up the form because it just makes Spanish La Liga look better when teams like that can kind of, in any league really, a smaller team like that can come up and kind of compete and again, just like makes the league more interesting. Kind of like Bundesliga right now. Leverkusen leading.
For sure. Now that you said Leverkusen and talking about Girona, I feel like next week we should just take this week to kind of like study up on like the rise of what they've been doing and everything, and then just kind of do a deep dive next week or something instead of because there's the international break, so we might as well.
Yeah, no, I like that idea.
Well, there's the pitch for the next episode, I guess. Having said all that, thanks for tuning in, guys, and we'll check you out for that deep dive next week.